everyone, to another edition of the Health Forum. With me today, I've got Dr. Marcus Kuipers as well as Dr. Young-Soo Kim. How are you gentlemen doing today?
Doing fine, doing fine.
Very good,
Fantastic.
thank you.
Fantastic. Today, we're going to be talking about hypertension, Dr. Kim. Is that correct?
That's true. But before we talk about hypertension, I'd like to mention the book Dr. Kuipers wrote some time ago. After he wrote that book, there were some interesting things that happened. The researchers involved in the research of the topic you mentioned in the book, they got big awards. The two researchers got something called Hoam Awards. That's like a Nobel Prize in medicine in Korea. Also, one guy was nominated for Nobel Prize 3 to 4 times. That's just so it kind of retroactively supported or confirmed your argument. I was very happy for you.
Oh. Yeah. And what's the name of the book again, Dr. Kim?
What's the name of the award?
Yes, the book.
The P700 and the Natural Cures of Diabetes P700.
P700 Natural Cures of Diabetes. How can anybody get it if they were interested in it?
They can place order, but right now it's all gone, and then they will make it available soon. We will just make another announcement.
Fantastic. Good.
Yeah.
Good. Excellent.
Yeah.
And well, let's talk a little bit about some of this. I was going to say, Dr.
In Canada, we have a public agency called Consumer Protection Agency. And then in Canada, they regulate all advertisement. So before they put advertisement, not after. So you have to submit the advertisement and they review and they approve or disapprove.
So it actually needs approval, Dr. Kim. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. And then we don't advertise, so we are not really good at advertisement, right? So we create something foolish, which is say, because we believe we are world number one healthy blood glucose promoting product, boom. And then the guy said, "Are you crazy? You cannot say something like this." So I said, why not? So if you say world number one, it's not good. If you say world number 10, is it good? So we believe we are not world number one. They say, prove it. So we just kept going back and forth for 2 years. Are you convinced? Are you convinced? Are you convinced? So we kept on providing data after data. 3,000 doctors are using this, 9 countries approval, and then among all products, this seems to be the only one with known modes of action. And after 2 years, they say, okay, you can use that word. So right now, we have the approval number for a foolishly worded poster which says world number one healthy blood glucose promotion product. People just laugh.
Well, I think that points out, though, that then and still is, to my knowledge, this is the only blood glucose normalizing natural product there is.
I think so.
There are lots of other medicinal herbs out there that do have some blood glucose lowering properties, but those are almost as an incidental benefit rather than mixing a natural remedy that gradually over time and perpetuates normal blood glucose. Yeah, and so that's something pretty significant and unique.
Yeah, and then they say, oh, this thing lowers blood glucose, and then we ask them how. They don't explain. It just does. Anyway, let's go back to this
Yeah.
topic.
No. How long ago did you write this book, Dr. Kuipers?
I wrote this book 17 years ago.
17 years ago.
Yeah.
Have you noticed a significant increase in diabetes through the years? I mean, you've been on top of that for so many
Oh,
years.
certainly. I mean, diabetes has exploded in most countries around the world over the past 15 or 20 years. So it's gradually increasing. We're seeing it in younger and younger individuals, and it certainly isn't going away in spite of all the plethora of drugs and medicines that have been developed to help, to help address the condition.
Yeah. Yep. How does that play? How does that play with hypertension? How does hypertension come into play with diabetes?
Well, they kind of go hand in hand as the body's metabolism and sensitivity to insulin declines. There seems to be kind of a overall decline in health, which increases the difficulty the body has in managing its blood pressure, and that probably also figures in with decreased exercise, increased weight gain, all of which we know are just simply part of the package of developing adult onset diabetes, and even
Sure.
with juvenile onset diabetes as well.
Also, both diabetes and hypertension have common cause, which is insulin resistance. So insulin resistance causes not only the diabetes, but it also causes hypertension. So there are so many comorbidity here. So it's quite natural that you see a person has both, or if a person has one disease, is more likely to have the other one.
Okay.
Well, and I was saying, as diabetes progresses and the individual's health gradually declines, it's rare, in my experience, to find a patient with diabetes of a moderately advanced nature to not have to be treated for hypertension and other problems as well.
Well,
So
duality of
they end up
purpose.
having to take more drugs besides just glucose lowering meds. They have to take drugs to minimize the effects of hypertension.
Whenever we talk about hypertension, I have a mental image. Mental image is, in old days, the firefighters use manual hydraulic pump to push the water through the hose to shoot the water into the third floor, fourth floor building, right? So now you have to pump manually, then you create the pressure into the hose, then water goes, right? So that's the image I always have. And in order to reach higher places, you should pump harder to create higher pressure, right? So people, taller people have, it's fun, taller people have higher blood pressure.
Yeah.
And likewise, the overweight people, is the analogy is, if you put furnitures, a lot of things on the hose, of course you should push harder to create even higher pressure so that water goes through. So I always have that mental picture, the old time firefighters push to put the
Kind of almost like priming the pump, Dr. Kim, to
Exactly.
create the pressure to push it through.
Yeah.
The blood, same thing happens with the blood. I think that's a great analogy.
Yeah.
Well, it's a pretty complex process, and it's not just simply hardening of the arteries. The arteries do, and cardiovascular disease, as diabetes progresses and they get older, yes, the vessels aren't as supple and malleable and their strength deteriorates to be able to maintain the blood pressure. But there's a whole lot of factors that play into it. But there is, I think that's not an incomplete analogy, that there is some hardening of the pipe so that you kind of heart has to work harder to pump the same amount of blood and maintain the same circulation. But the vessels aren't as limber and can't adjust to the cardiovascular needs as time goes on.
That's true. That's true.
They seem to be much less supple when it comes to the aging process, and especially with artery clogging as well. I mean, that's a big part of it as well.
But interesting thing is, in 1940s and 50s, the systolic 160, diastolic 95, that was normal. But these days is 120/80, that's normal. So right now, the 46% of all American adults are classified have a higher blood pressure. I think that's a bit funny. I think that's a bit too much. Don't you think, Dr. Kuipers?
Well, they do. That has gradually over time been the normal range has been adjusted downward over time, and also as we get more and more data as well. And we find that even small increases in blood pressure seem to have some problems and effect as time goes on. So to a degree, lower is better.
So that we can start preparing earlier. That's what you're saying.
Right.
Okay, I see.
And then lowering your blood pressure earlier when you're in your 20s and 30s is preferable than trying to do it when you're 50 and 60.
That's true. And Dr. Kuipers, are you generally satisfied with the drugs you prescribe to those people with high blood pressure these days?
Well, there's just a vast number of drugs for high blood pressure, and for the most part, they do what they're designed to do. They do lower the blood pressure, but there's a couple problems. One is they have an awful lot of side effects.
I see.
And a lot of times those side effects cause people to, it doesn't make them feel well, or they don't like it. And sometimes they're ending up with having to take 2 or 3 blood pressure medicines. And as a result, compliance becomes difficult because they end up having to take a whole big handful of pills every day. And for a lot of people, that's very expensive. And it's also time consuming, and you have to remember which pill is when. And it requires fairly frequent trips to your doctor to have those medicines adjusted to try and minimize the side effects. So it does help. The blood pressure drugs are by and large good. They can lower the blood pressure, but they require a lot of work on the patient's part to take the drugs in a timely fashion like they're supposed to, and to do some of the other methods that are helpful for lowering blood pressure, such as exercise, lowering weight, and changing your diet, avoiding salt, and so on.
Here's I'll give you some numbers. There are several classes of hypertension drugs, and then diuretics that lowers 7 to 8 millimeters in mercury. ACE inhibitors that lowers by 10 to 12 millimeters in mercury. Calcium channel blockers, 8 millimeters in mercury. Beta blockers, 5 to 6 millimeters in mercury, all in systolic blood pressure. And then one just lowers that much only. So that's why people have to use a couple of the more drugs. And then the another number, interesting number is you just mentioned other method like a natural ways. For example, exercise, deep breath, stress management, diet. No, those things also lower the blood pressure by similar amount, meaning that instead of taking one class of hypertension drug, if you change one aspect of that lifestyle, you can just balance each other. So meaning that if you have to take three kinds of hypertension drugs, instead of doing that, if you change three lifestyle, if you do three lifestyle changes, actually you can attain the same purpose. So I think it is really, really important to make some changes in lifestyle. I think that's the great point you raised.
Yeah. Could some of these drugs, Dr. Kim, could they even affect the organs or organs? Because I understand that some of the drugs out there for hypertension unruly affect the organs pretty bad.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Actually the drugs being banned and kicked out of market happens most in hypertension drug. So
Really?
in recent years, if you check the media, I think just 2 years ago, there are 200 to 300 pharmaceutical companies are banned to sell their hypertension drugs. And so, but what's sad is they use different names and reappear in the market. So it is really important for consumers to watch whether this class of drug has been banned. Also, it's like this. A class of drug is banned in one country, but not in another country. So I can just say at least all the drugs, old prescription drugs or new prescription drugs, they are at least not universally safe. One country ban, other countries say it's okay. At least some countries think it's dangerous. And recently, every year the new side effects are discussed, and then these days one of the most seriously discussed side effect of all this hypertension drug is Alzheimer's disease. Maybe it's from the high blood pressure or from hypertension drug. It's not clear, but there is certain relations between the Alzheimer and then usage of hypertension drugs. That's what some people are worried about.
Yeah, I did some reading on that, the hypertension drugs, and they were saying that many of them, you've got to stay away from any kind of mechanical equipment. It's not a good idea to be running that because of dizziness, brain fog, and so forth.
Yeah, because the dizziness happens all of a sudden in such an unexpected way. So, if you as I just made the analogy, you have to maintain some pressure so that the water goes to the higher place. So if the blood pressure goes down, the blood simply doesn't go to your brain.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden you just lose consciousness, So and the that when you are especially manipulating heavy equipment, what could it be?
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, there was some instance of the airplane going down because the pilots took a hypertension drug in recent history. I know of a couple of cases like that, actually. Yeah.
That's not good. How do salts come into play, Dr. Kim?
Salts is, let me just say, I'm not joking. Okay? I'm not joking. They are joking. So the people say salt is bad. So but are you sure the sodium chloride? So people say not the salt. Sodium inside salt is bad. But the what I want to point out is if you go and then if you buy sea salt or Himalayan salt or all those salts, not just a purified table salt. That's not what I'm talking about. If you
Yep.
go to supermarket, you can buy some sea salt, Himalayan rock salt, those kind of things. Not really the chemical content is not really sodium chloride. They contain lots of magnesium, iron, iodine, potassium. So some salts are really good. Let me just point out just one incident. In Korea, there is a place where they make salt, and then actually it is proven in Korean government agency, they approved it as hypertension drug. So some salts are good. So so if you check the internet, so much debate. Some doctors say no salt, no salt, no salt, but some doctors say no, 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 no. You should take natural salt. So for me, I read about this natural salt, which is really helpful for controlling the blood pressure. And then my wife still believes that no salt is good for blood pressure. And then we are having quite a debate during the dinner table, and uh, I'm swaying this side from this side from time to time, but I'd like to emphasize that natural salt. I can put those name of the salt in our website. There are some sea salt from France, and then there are some sea salt from Israel. They are actually quite good for controlling blood pressure. Actually, I will just give the information so that people can make their own decisions.
Yeah, that'd be good to put on the web, Dr. Kim. You
Yeah, I
know,
will.
Well, that points out one of the big problems is that if people are often taking more than one type of blood pressure medicine,
Yeah.
they take several different classes of blood pressure medicines because the effects kind of work together to help lower the blood pressure. But by the same token, they can also have sort of synergistic effects or synergistic side effects as well. Like particularly a big problem with diuretics is that they can cause problems with potassium. And so a lot of times, if they're not maintaining adequate fluid intake, if they're not getting enough potassium or salts in their diet, then they can fairly quickly have low potassium, which can cause a whole lot of problems. And a lot of times, even to the point that, we have to put it back in them intravenously to correct it. So the more drugs you take, then the more potential side effects there are, as far as what their deleterious side effects are.
what would be some of the warning signs of low potassium?
A lot of times, probably one of the most common is just generally feeling weakness.
Yep.
Sometimes as a result, if you're feeling weak and you're low potassium, then as in with diuretics, then you probably aren't maintaining adequate fluid intake. So when you get that weak, you can be dizzy. You can even have falls and pass out. You can have palpitations, rapid heart rate, chest pains, and so on. That becomes very, very significant if your potassium's low, because potassium is one of the more important salts for the cardiac system.
It's amazing you say that. I remember my coach, Coach Irv Black. He used to recommend for all of the guys on the track to make sure that you took bananas with us.
That's very important actually. Bananas,
Yeah,
yeah, potato,
yeah,
bananas, yeah. And then
Well, and if you're not getting enough salt, then you can have muscle cramps. You can start to sweat profusely and actually go into have heat exhaustion and pass out and faint. So a lot of times coaches will tell the athletes or even kids working out at recess or PE, physical education, to be sure you take salt tablets and stay hydrated.
yeah, that's
yeah,
true. And let's talk about some herbal products or herbs for blood pressure control.
yeah. You've got one. Let's talk a little bit about
Yeah,
that one from
yeah,
the Tibet.
yeah, yeah. We have the data about 5,000 herbs in the world that are known to help uh, control blood pressure. And the uh, 5,000 may sound like a big number, but compared with, we have about 250,000 prescription information, 250,000 herbs that are known to help diabetes in the world. We have been collecting all those data of natural herbs that are helpful for this disease, that disease. In total, we have 6 million data points, 6 million herbal medicines, and which are good for all kinds of diseases. So, the compared with a 250,000 prescriptions, the blood pressure uh, herbs is just 5,000. This means that in traditional medicine, high blood pressure is not really regarded as a serious disease compared with diabetes. So anyhow, among all those 5,000 herbs that are good for controlling blood pressure, we came up with garlic, and wholesome, ginkgo biloba, and turmeric. Those are the among those 5,000 herbs. We recommend those four things, but our product LBM uh, is from Tibet. Tibetan medicine is something very, very special. So actually, Chinese medicine came from Tibet. I go to Tibet from time to time to buy ingredients for our product. And then there I met a genius. And then he helped me to develop this product, LBM. And this became a very famous, and this became a blockbuster for our product because this is the first ever, I don't know whether there is a second, this is the first ever approved herbal product approved for controlling high blood pressure in North America. So this is the only one in North America that is approved. And it is known to have vasodilation, the resoftening, the hardened arteries, this thing make it softer again, and then removing bad cholesterol and then repairing damaged parts of the blood vessels. So not only just for high blood pressure, they say this is good for many things. So I take this product, and then if this product is taken with our other product, which lowers insulin resistance, the effects are very fast and or almost permanent. So the I really recommend this product for anybody who is concerned about their blood pressure or people who are interested in preventing high blood pressure. This is a great product, very safe, children can take it without any worries. So LBM is the product, and then this thing sells really well within our company.
Would you recommend that to be taken with the Bentley, Dr. Kim?
Yes.
Your Bentley product?
Yeah. And then but standalone use, this thing by itself is really good. But if you are taking this to control your blood pressure, LBM and Bentley together works synergistically, and then the effects are faster and stronger and more permanent.
Fantastic. Wow. It's amazing what natural herbs can do, you know, and we get so wrapped up and caught up with all of these pharmaceutical drugs that, you know, and what scares me the most is every time you're looking at a pharmaceutical drugs many times, you know, it's, well, you know, it's great for you, but you got to be careful for this, that, and the other thing, not to mention the fact of organ failure.
Yeah. And then the last thing that I'd like to add is, you know, I say this hypertension is the problem of this civilization, this capitalistic civilization. We always work more. We accomplish more. We'd like to go faster. So this thing keeps on giving pressure, stress. And then this our habit of looking at ourselves, around ourselves from a stress viewpoint, and giving more pressure. So we only know how to raise blood pressure. Our body doesn't know how to lower naturally the blood pressure. So people say the breathing out. Modern people don't know how to breathe out. They only breathe in. That's the same in martial art. They don't breathe out. They cannot breathe in, right? So yeah, just breathing out, it increases so-called parasympathetic nervous system activity. It just very naturally, lowers blood pressure, and then it solves so much problem. So as Dr. Kuipers pointed out, our stress management, deep breathing, meditation, I think that should be emphasized more than just taking the drugs. That was my last comment.
Yeah, that's a natural remedy in and of itself, Dr. Kim.
That's true.
You know, it's amazing. Well, I want to thank you both very much. I really appreciated this, and if anybody is interested, you know, obviously go to the site, and you know, it's an alternative, and it's a very good alternative because it's natural.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Dr. Kim. Thank you, Dr. Kuipers. You guys have a wonderful day, and we'll talk again.
Bye-bye.